and I sank like a stone, and everything started to go black. Um, and I knew that I was going to die. And from the moment I actually realized that and accepted that, had this all the panic, all the terror, all of the fright just dropped away. And I started to feel very peaceful inside. Everything went black. And I heard this amazing and incredible sound. I've heard sounds kind of like that from singing bowls that they use sometimes in ceremonies and spiritual practices. But it sounded like the biggest and the smallest all at the same time in perfect harmony. It was very penetrating sound. And I remember my attention was drawn towards where I thought the sound was coming from and somehow was drawn in that direction. And as I moved in that direction, I saw this glowing kind of golden light. And I approached it. And as I approached it, it was almost like being sucked into something. I went through this tunnel of this golden light, and I came out into this vast expanse of what I first thought were billions of golden stars. And immediately when I got into that space where I'd already been in peace, um, I was filled with this incredible feeling of bliss and joy and love and a huge sense of relief in its own way. And I first realized these weren't stars when some of them began moving towards me. And as they came up to me, I knew they were people and I knew they were souls. And and I knew many of them, which was even in that moment was confusing to me because I realized these are people, if you will. They don't have bodies, they're glowing golden lights that I knew them, but I didn't know them in this lifetime. But I didn't really pause or ponder that. They were all welcoming me home. They were very loving, very kind. And as I passed through them and kept moving, more and more came up to me to greet me, to welcome me back. And it felt so good, like it was the best homecoming I've ever had. And then all of a sudden, I was snatched backwards, like if I was a yo-yo that had been set down and pulled right back up again. And I found myself lying in the dirt beside the swimming pool. And I remember I was scraped up and one of my legs was bleeding. It was pretty painful. I started to feel really woozy and my heart started skipping beats. And I knew I was in trouble. So I laid down on the floor because I didn't want to pass out on a hardwood floor. And my heart stopped. But this time, I didn't go to this place through the tunnel of light and with all these souls on the other side. I stayed in this place that was dark. And it was confusing at first because I knew I had died again. And I actually felt really happy in a way that happened to immediately go back to that place, but it didn't happen. But I knew I was headed in that direction through this darkness. There was no tunnel. There was no golden light. There was no sound. And as I moved through this darkness, knowing I was headed in that direction, but not there, I heard a bunch of voices shouting angrily at each other, all trying to outshout the other. And I was irritated by that. And I headed in that direction. Don't know why. But when I got closer, I realized that all those voices were my voice. Every single one was me. Every single one was trying to shout out over the others. So, of course, like an idiot, told everybody to be quiet, which everybody else was telling everybody else to be quiet. So nobody listened to me. And I realized in that moment something's wrong. And that somehow these parts of me are not me. They're me, but not me. And I wasn't whole. And I felt like I can't go, I can't go back to what I call soul space in this condition. And and there's something that I need to do first. And so I made the decision to come back. And in that moment, I realized I made the decision to come back the first time as well, even though I blamed it on them, the lifeguards, and I got very angry at them, but I chose to come back. I found myself floating above the earth. And I understand now that earth is a being, and we're like cells of that being, human beings, and all other life on her are. And I had met this guide I call Grandmother Earth, who taught me a lot about my healing work. So I didn't go study healing work. I didn't follow any of the traditional routes there. She would appear and she would teach me how to use my heart and how to teach others to use their heart to do healing work and to help people with clearing the energies and restoring health and curing diseases. And I was floating above the earth with her, just looking at these, like you see these pictures of the earth from the space shuttle or whatever space station. It's so beautiful and it's so serene, and it makes you realize how teeny we are and how insignificant we are. And I thanked my grandmother for this beautiful, wonderful experience that she had gifted me with.